Okay, we're live.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. First, I'd like to say Happy Teacher Appreciation Day and to thank you for all of our wonderful teachers for what you do for our students. We appreciate it. At this time, we'll recess the meeting, the regular meeting, until the conclusion of our budget hearing. And Corey, do we need a motion for that?
Yes, we do.
Can I have a motion to recess the regular meeting?
I'll make the motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Now we're in our public hearing, and this is for the 21-22 budget hearing. And before we go into this, we will need the dispensing of the annual meeting notice. Do we have a motion to dispense the reading of the annual meeting notice?
Arnie will move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, and I'd just like to remind everyone that will be watching this evening, printed copies are available as attachments. If anybody would like a copy of the budget presentation, or I'm sorry, not of the budget presentation, but the annual meeting notice. And at this time, I will turn over the meeting to Dr. McDonald and Mrs. Hungerford for the information pertaining to the 21-22 proposed budget.
And I am going to turn it quickly over to Meg Hungerford, who does a wonderful job presenting. And I will add comments or discussion throughout if I feel so inclined.
All right.
Mrs. Hungerford?
Thank you. Can everybody see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to present information tonight on the proposed budget for next year, 21-22. The budget has been approved by the Board of Education and will be presented to the voters for approval at a vote on May 18th. The slide format is going to look very similar to what you've seen over the last few months. We've got the same information up, just updated it as we finalized the budget. The proposed budget for next year includes revenues of $21,517,000 and appropriated fund balance of $775,000 for a total budget of $22,292,000. This is a 3.45% increase over the current year's budget, which was about $21.5 million, and it includes a 0.65% tax levy increase. The board adopted, and the public will be voting on, the general fund budget. We also have a budget related to federal funds and grants that the districts receives. So this slide has a lot of information on it, but what I wanted to illustrate was that the current year's budget for the general fund was $21.5 million, and we had a budget of $988,000 for the federal fund, for a total budget of $22.5 million. For next year, the general fund's budget is $22.2 million. Federal funds budget is projected at $1.6 million for a total of almost $24 million. And that significant increase in the projected budget for the federal fund has to do with funds that we've appropriated from the stimulus funding awarded to the district to fund some positions in next year's budget. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the slides. This chart just looks at the various categories of revenues that the district has. As I mentioned earlier, there's a 0.65 or $44,000 increase in the property tax levy. There's about a 3% increase in state aid. This is due to some just increases in state aid that is awarded to the district, such as foundation aid. But there's also some areas where the district is spending more, like our capital outlay project, where our aid is increasing. Our federal revenue is a large percent increase, but it's a $25,000 increase that's projected. And this has to do with projected increases in Medicaid revenue for next year. Other revenue categories is decreased slightly. And as I mentioned before, our appropriated fund balance of $775,000 is about a 50% increase. So those are all the total revenue categories. This is just a graphical representation of those revenues and what percent they make up of the budget. You'll see that clearly property taxes and state aid account for over 90% of the district's budget. Slide looks specifically at the state aid revenue and how each category has changed. I mentioned just a moment ago that our foundation aid, that's an aid that's based on a variety of factors, but not directly related to expenditures. And that is increased about $300,000. Other increases are projected in BOCES aid, transportation aid, and building aid. So overall, our state aid in the budget is increased about $400,000. As I mentioned, the property tax levy is projected at $6,856,000. This is a $44,000 increase. The tax rate is projected at $12.90 per thousand of assessed value. This year it was $12.82. So that's about an $8 increase in the tax bill for a property that's assessed at $100,000. The allowable levy growth factor that was allocated to districts for this year is 1.23%, but there's a variety of factors that go into the tax calculation. So our allowable levy was about the 0.65% that our levy is increasing. The past couple of years, we've appropriated $525,000 of fund balance, and we try to manage our appropriated fund balance. We don't want to be using fund balance to fund ongoing expenditures that the district will incur every year, because fund balance is not a renewable source of energy, of revenue, not energy. Because once we spend it, it's depleted and it doesn't necessarily continue the next year. However, for this year, because of the district's plan change to the high deductible health plan, we have appropriated additional fund balance to help fund the initial contribution to the HRAs and HSAs that will be provided to employees in conjunction with that high deductible health plan. And we'll talk some more about that in a bit. Speaking of fund balance, this slide shows you what the district's fund balance has looked like over the last few years. And I would draw your attention to this unassigned ending fund balance line. You'll see that that's ranged right about 1.4 million. The state likes to see us not have fund balance that's greater than 4% of the district's expenditures. And you'll see that we're around 6.5, but we're maintaining that level and continuing to manage our fund balance. It's very difficult to keep the fund balance under 4%. There are cash flow issues related to that. We have expenditures that occur pretty consistently on a monthly basis, but our state aid does not flow in at the same rate. So it's important that we have fund balance to help pay our bills throughout the year while we're waiting for the revenues to come in. So we're regularly monitoring fund balance and looking at it and identifying amounts that should be appropriated to the budget, as well as amounts that could be put into reserves. This projected fund balance does assume that the board will approve an additional $225,000 to be put into the capital reserve by the end of the year. We know that we have some future needs that are going to come up related to Townsend School and other capital projects, and we want to be proactive about putting aside funding to fund those so that we don't incur any additional expense in the regular budget. So we'll get state aid back on a portion of it, but we're working to set aside the district share in the capital reserve to avoid future budget increases. As I mentioned, the district has been awarded COVID stimulus funds. The total amount awarded in December and then in March to the district was $5.2 million. We've identified plans for $662,000 of that next year. It includes funding 5 teaching positions, as well as 2 social worker positions and some other COVID-related expenses. The district will be working to develop a plan of how we'll use those funds over the next 4 years. And when that's complete, we'll be publishing that on the district's website as required. Shifting gears a little bit from revenues to the expense or appropriation side of the budget. This just compares various categories that are included in the budget and the increases year over year. You'll see that wages shows a 0% increase. We do anticipate giving district employees their contractual, raises, but because we've shifted certain positions to the federal fund to be funded, it shows as a net 0% increase. The equipment budget is increased significantly. We've included funds for a tractor and some attachments for the facilities and operations department. And the other large increases in the benefits category, and that's attributed to the funding of the high deductible health plan and the HRAs, as well as an anticipated increase in our contribution to the employees' retirement system. Again, this is just a graphical representation of what makes up the district's expenditures. And here, on the revenue side, we looked at how state aid and property taxes account for 90% of the district's revenues. Similarly, on this side, wages and benefits for our employees make up about 70% of the district's budget. We've spent a lot of time over the last few months looking at alternatives for our health plan. The projected cost to renew our current health plan was $4.6 million, which is a 28% increase over this year's costs. We received quotes for a high deductible health plan, which is about $200,000 less. We're hoping that by changing to this plan, it'll accomplish a couple things. We're hoping to increase consumerism on the part of our employees who participate in the health plan and make them more engaged in their health decisions to help decrease the actual cost of the plan. And also we hope to achieve some additional savings over time if the HRA is not fully utilized. We know that the money that the district puts into the health savings account becomes the employees' funds, and those roll over if they're not spent. So that will be an expenditure of the district, but we may achieve some savings in the HRA side if those funds are not fully utilized by the employees. Some other changes to highlight related to the budget. We are planning to add 2 social workers for the district. Those are going to be funded by the stimulus funds, not the general fund budget that the taxpayers are voting on. The position of Director of Curriculum and Assessment has been eliminated. That is not funded in the budget. We removed some funds that we had budgeted last year for classroom furniture. We decreased some overtime budgets. And again, as I mentioned, we have the tractor included. We're anticipating an increase in the ERS contribution rate. We've changed workman's compensation carriers for the district, resulting in premium savings of greater than $50,000. We've also moved our labor relations service from next year to a service through BOCES. We've adjusted some of the other services that we get through BOCES and decreased the full-time equivalents of staff that are going to be working with the district in certain positions. We've eliminated 1 aide position through attrition due to a retirement. And we've maintained the $100,000 capital outlay project. In addition to voting on the budget on the 18th, there will also be propositions related to the library tax levy, as well as the lease of 3 new buses. These are not, we have a bus lease that's expiring, and so we'll be renewing that. So we're not adding to the bus fleet or adding a new lease. It's replacing one that's expiring. And there are also 3 Board of Education seats that are up for election. Voting will take place on the 18th from 12 to 9 at the bus garage. And in order to vote, an individual has to be 18, a citizen of the United States, and a resident of the district for 30 days or more. Anyone that has questions about voting or would like an absentee ballot can contact the district clerk. And that's all I had, unless there's any questions from those participating.
I do not. Does anybody else have any questions?
No, thank you, Meg.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Very thorough. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Meg.
And just as a reminder, for anyone coming to vote, in person, please bring your ID with you. That would be appreciated. All right, so public comment. Were there any public comments that were received prior, Ms. Frainer?
The only thing I had received was questions on the board seats.
Okay. All right. So any additional questions or comments on the budget hearing may be submitted to or by emailing the BOE@waltoncsd.org or by calling the district clerk at 607-865-4116, extension 6130. All right, so we need a motion to return to regular session. Do we have a motion?
Agreed. I'll move it.
Second,
Chad will second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. We have the approval of the minutes from April 20th. Do we have a motion to accept those minutes as submitted?
Make the motion.
You'll make it.
Second,
Arnie made the motion. I'll second.
oh, sorry. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we also have the minutes from the special meeting on April 27th. Do we have a motion to accept them as submitted?
Agreed. I'll move it.
Second.
Second, Paul? Okay, all in
Sure.
favor?
Muting.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And if there are no questions or concerns on the CSE, CPSC recommendations, do we have a motion to accept them as submitted?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And once again, under Executive Order 202.1, the temporary suspension of in-person public meetings. If someone would like to make a public comment, once again, they may do so by emailing the BOE@waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116, extension 6130. There were a couple of emails that came through, but I believe Dr. Mackey, you'll address that in a little while.
Dr. McDonald.
I'm sorry, I keep doing, it just rolls.
It's good that we already have a nickname for him. It's good.
Those
Dr. McDonald.
emails correspond with part of one of the administrative reports I'll be highlighting.
Okay, thank you. If somebody doesn't understand the history behind that, after working with Dr. Mack for so many years. All right, we are up to discussion items. We have the legal RFP timeline and details. Dr. McDonald, do you want to touch on that?
Absolutely. So as the board knows, we have, we approved an RFP, reviewed it last meeting, and we have sent it out. So the question, a few details. One, how do we want to conduct interviews when we coordinate that in May? It's been done different ways. It could be the whole board, or is it part of the board? What's the pleasure of the board? On our timeline, it will be beginning sometime after the 24th, and Corey will coordinate once we know who the members of the interview committee are.
Okay. Does anybody have a preference?
I think the process we used last time utilized the entire board, went fairly smooth. That way everybody has an opinion to share it, and it's done as a board.
Okay.
You get a feel of the firm as well.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll coordinate through email. Corey will coordinate with everybody to determine a date and a time. We have received RFPs. from several firms, I believe actually 4, I think, at this point. So we've got a good pool, and we'll work through the process.
Okay,
Let me just go down through the list.
sure. Thank
The
you.
next item, strategic planning. We have a number of dates and opportunities that will be coming up with the strategic planning process. I'm actually meeting with the facilitator, with Kevin McGowan, tomorrow to solidify some of these. The first one will be a 3-hour evening session with the board and leadership team. So that our thoughts are, that'll be sometime in the second half of June initially. And then, so the question is, we were asking regarding June 22nd or 29th. Do either of those dates, do we have a preference for those? And how early can we begin? In remote, in person? So we get a lot of questions to coordinate. So if we start with the 22nd or 29th, does anybody have a preference on that? Or a night that just does not work, or do both of them not work?
I don't have a conflict with either night.
Myself either.
What day of the week is that? I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Tuesday's the 22nd, and the 29th is Tuesday as well.
Tuesday.
Could be good.
And how early for our planning? We know everybody has different work commitments.
6
I
a.m.
think the earliest that we've ever start is usually about 5:30. Is that about right, Paul? I know you're coming into town.
Yeah, with that much notice, though, I just wouldn't book anything late in the afternoon. But Kevin's on summer hours. Could be
Right.
paving.
I don't know how late we'd have to go into the night, but if we could do 6 o'clock, that frees up a little bit. I mean, we can do 5:30. That just it's a little bit tighter.
Right? Okay.
It's
So 6
predicted
o'clock?
as a 3-hour session.
Is that
I
okay?
guess if everybody wants to try to do 5:30, so we can be out at 8:30 versus 9 o'clock. I mean, I can cut out earlier that day.
And in person or remote?
In person.
In person?
Yeah, I think
think so.
I think it would maximize it. That way we don't have to worry about internet connections, anything like that. Everyone's there hearing the same thing and able to participate.
Conversations will flow easier in person, I believe.
Yeah, you won't have people stepping on motions and seconds and things like that.
Okay.
Won't be awkward.
We'll figure out the location. More than likely will not be the boardroom with that number of people. We'll see. We'll kind of map it out when we figure out our numbers after we meet with Kevin as far as the leadership team. Leadership versus entire management team increases numbers. We'll decide on a location to keep everybody appropriately distanced and comfortable. So that's it for the first session. And then just at this point, just letting everybody know to keep in mind that July or early August. Oh no, that was the other. So later on, we will be having a full day event. Does not necessarily need to be the full board. It can be partial board. It can be anybody who wants to be involved. It can be the full board. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to try to get some dates tomorrow from Mr. McGowan, Dr. McGowan, to rule out what's not available on his calendar, and then we'll start communicating that out as early as possibly Friday. And then the last item is a calendar change. So because of the timing and being able to communicate out to the parents, wanted to talk this through a little bit tonight. We normally, with our formal process, any adjustments to the calendar, we vote on the actual calendar for adjustments. We're holding on to a snow day purposely. We still have the remote option, but in the event that something were to happen and we did not have any internet, electric power outage or something of that nature, it's always good to have an emergency closing day in our pocket so that we don't end up with a day with no instruction, no emergency closing day, and we end up with an aid loss or asking for forgiveness from the state. So we're hanging on to a day. If this day carries through with no weather events, and we have it, the intent would be that early June, we would announce, beginning of June, late May, we would announce to the parents an adjustment in the final year of the year calendar that would take the last day, which right now is a conference day, professional development conference day, shift it back one day and put an emergency closing day as the last day of instruction or of school. So kids would get out, instead of elementary through 6th grade, would get out on a day earlier than they are right now. And with this year, that's really probably a very good thing with the year that we've had. We're making adjustments with the regents. We're still figuring out those details. I'm sure that'll be communicated out from in either the Friday letter or in one of upcoming Mr. Loomis's and Mr. Hoover's administrative reports. We're still getting the details on those. So we have to offer the exams in order to count them as a Regents Day. There's a lot of details behind it that we're still ironing out, and then we'll map that out and get an end of the year calendar together out to parents by the end of this month. So not having June 2nd, I just wanted to have the blessing of the board with what I had just said of that adjustment at the end of the month, with a formal calendar coming at the beginning meeting in June for formal adoption with those changes. So I'm asking for a blessing.
I'm good.
Any opposed? All right.
Good.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that was the last item.
All right. Correspondence. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
While we're in discussion items, do we want to just clarify, are we going to go back to in-person meeting in June then? I know the email was kicking around, but I didn't see where everybody answered into that,
Yes.
or no, or.
I know myself, you, Graydon. Does anybody else oppose going into in-person?
All for it.
All right.
How-
You're all set?
Where does am I done on the 18th? Correct?
Potentially.
Maybe.
Because I thought that's how it went, filling
Right.
in at the election that I'm done, right?
It's my understanding, and I would clarify it again with the school attorney, that whoever receives the third highest number of votes would take over your partial position upon taking their oath of office, which could be the very next day.
Okay.
Or they could wait until July, in which case you would be allowed to continue serving.
Okay. So then I'm fine with in-person starting June 1st.
Okay. And Arnie and Miranda, you didn't have a problem with that? No? Okay.
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, for remembering that. All right. Correspondence. Everyone seen Senator Martucci's letter? That's nice. And there was no other correspondence, correct? All right, we're up to presentations. We have a presentation for the senior class trip. Ms. Dieter.
Hello, everyone. This year for the senior trip, and since we can't do overnight, we would like to plan a 2-day trip on June 11th to Hershey Park, and then June 17th to the Lake George area. We're going to use Hale Transportation, which we've used in the past. If I don't have the paper in front of me, but if you guys have a copy of it, it shows how the breakdown is. And that's just me estimating. I mean, we could use more money out of the class funds so that the trip will be cheaper, but I just don't know how much right
now. Okay. And on our list, it says currently there are 34 students signed up to participate in the 2 trips.
Correct.
And that would be 4 chaperones.
Yep, I have Marcia Albrecht right now, and I'm not sure about the 2 other chaperones yet.
Okay. I think it's a wonderful alternative.
I'll tell you what, with the obstacles that Tracy's had to work around, this is a fantastic opportunity for our seniors. She's had to deal with just like schools have certain regulations that they have to follow. Amusement parks, for instance, have different regulations they have to follow. So she's been on it every step of the way. And again, I think this is a great offering for our seniors.
Yeah, I would agree. And they will be holding a chicken barbecue to help fundraise for this. And that's going to be coming up.
It's
Yeah,
actually,
I set a goal for 400 for them to sell 400 tickets, and as of right now, we're at 450. So, not sure how I'm going to deliver them to school, but they're doing a good job.
That's wonderful.
Cooked.
Did anybody have any
dinner
questions?
is actually the night of the budget vote. So after you vote, go over to buy a ticket, go over to the school and pick up your dinner.
Nice. Nice.
Thank you, Tracy or Miss Dieter, for working so hard to get something for our seniors this year in a hard time. We appreciate that. It's much deserving, and I know it takes a lot of time up on someone's hands to research everything. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very nice. All right, if there's no other questions. All right, we'll move on. Thank you very much. All right. Are there any additions to the agenda?
No, we do not have any tonight.
Okay. All right, so for the consent agenda, we have appointments of Kenneth Stanton as a substitute custodial worker. I'm sorry.
Rhonda,
That's prior to the consent agenda. I apologize.
that was a possibility. He is going to be added at the next meeting.
Sorry. All right. Move that. All right. So moving on to the consent agenda, we have the establishment of a scholarship. And this was for the Patriot Award to be given to a graduating senior entering the military. We have the approval of the senior class trip. We have the resignation or retirements. Justin Preston as athletic director and John George as automotive mechanic bus driver. We have an unpaid leave request from Nancy Schmidt, an emergency appointment for Vincent Escobar, substitute teacher. And then we have the appointments of Cassandra Huntress, substitute custodial worker, Tara Sackett, CSE, CPSE chairperson for per diem, and the high school musical. Music director Raymond Bartlett, drama director Jennifer Bartlett, vocal trainer Rebecca Doig, rehearsal accompanist Karen Ball, costumer Joanne Dewing, and sound technician Teresa Bolton. And then we have the athletic recommendations. Are there any questions or concerns on that? If not, do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as submitted?
Well, before Rhonda, I don't have questions or concerns, but and not that all aren't significant, but the scholarship is pretty powerful. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just read the about Justin Whiting so people understand what this is for and from and how it was funded.
Yes, by all means.
All right. So Justin Whiting is the person whose name the scholarship is in, and just some history about Justin Whiting. He grew up in Hancock and graduated from Hancock Central School in June of 1999. He enlisted in the Army in 1999 as a track vehicle mechanic and was assigned to the 4th Infantry Division at Fort Hood, Texas. He volunteered for Special Forces duty and completed the Special Forces qualification course in 2004. He served as a medical sergeant for Operational Detachment Alpha, ODA 582, 3rd Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group Airborne. He deployed with ODA 582 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 2 and OIF 3. After serving his first enlistment, SSG Whiting was honorably discharged from the Army and returned home to Hancock. Several months after being discharged, Justin again enlisted to be assigned back to the 5th Special Forces Group Airborne. Once again, he was called upon to deploy to Iraq in support of OIF 5, where he gave his life on 19th of January 2008 near the city of Mosul, Iraq. He was buried in the French Woods Community Center near the family farm in the town of Hancock. So this Legacy Honor Inc. is a 501c3 not-for-profit charitable organization based in Hancock, New York, formed in 2017 to honor SSG Justin Whiting. It supports programs and initiatives that support military veterans and their families. It supports programs that promote and deepen patriotism, including local and regional school-based programs, and supports awards to high school seniors who enlist in the branch of the United States Armed Services. So I just thought that that's, I mean, very significant.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for doing
very
that,
much.
Paul.
Thank you for doing that. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion.
Arnie will make it. Arnie will second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we are up to number 10, to accept donations. We have donations from the UHS Delaware Valley Hospital. These are several cookbooks, and this is for the Health Advisory Council. These are different groups that they are doing. And then also on March of our March. I don't know if I said that way. Correct. 3-piece/6-piece head and wrist sweatbands, pack of 4 cooling towels, yoga mat with knee pads, and 2 #1 arm or leg weights. And we also have $50 donated from Donald and Kathy Schofield in memory of David Edwards to the Walton FFA chapter. Do we have a motion to accept these donations?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we are up to the 2020 Capital Improvement Project Bid Awards. And we also have Michael DePerna here from CNS. So if there are any questions on this. The contract number 1, and this is for the Townsend Elementary Flood Mitigation Project. Contract number 1, general construction contract to Eastman Associates in the amount of $573,000. Contract number 2, mechanical construction contract awarded to Treffersons and Son LLC in the amount of $239,600. We have the state contract security and access controls to Day Automation, and that is $21,115.70. State contract for controls, TBS controls, in the amount of $25,750. And then for the O'Neill High School Phase 1 roof improvement project, TIPS contract number 1, roof construction contract awarded to J&B Installation and Company in the amount of $2,011,925. Are there any questions? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to accept these bids and award?
Green will move it.
Second,
Paul, second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. And we are up to supervisor remarks. And I'd like to thank Mr. DePerna for attending. If we have any questions, but it was laid out very nicely, self-explanatory.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Supervisors remarks. Do we have any questions on them? One thing I want to stay on Mr. Robinson's report about the Torchmate 4400. If you all remember when we did our tour of the ag room and we come across this huge machine, I for one was not sure what it was, but with the help of Danny Hodges and Dan Couture, they were all able to get that machine up and running that has not been working for several years. So kudos to them. Congratulations that, you know, the students will be able to utilize this plasma cutter in the future. So I'm going to just touch on that. And we have the athletic department. We did have some questions about the varsity athletic awards. Dr. McDonald, did you want to touch on that?
Yep, absolutely. And just before that, going back to the Torchmate real quick. Upcoming, one of the things that Artie and I, Mr. Loomis and I have been working on discussing, and with some contacts and communications with BOCES. Both welding programs have Torchmate. We have a plasma cutter that actually has a 3-phase. It can be used for plasma for metal, a router for wood, or a router for plastic. I happen to know a little bit about it because I was the one who bought it years ago and installed it prior to leaving. So the ones at BOCES are still our Torchmates. They're a Lincoln product, but they're laser, but the software components are the same. So BOCES invested in some major training of their instructors. So we're working with them to gain access and get some relationship built and get some training from those trained instructors for our ag program and exposure actually for our students, probably late summer, fall, or whatever we get coordinated. So I'm excited to see that. Mr. Loomis will be taking the lead on that. Now that we've got the connections established. So it's exciting to see that be up and operational again.
Yeah, do you think that might have been part of the problem, is that maybe when we had staff leave, that other ones did not know how to run it and were never properly trained on it?
That's exactly what the problem was. When Mrs. James was here, she was here when we purchased it. She received training, and then when she exited, really the availability of training is limited except for online tutorials you can send to a Lincoln clinic, a Lincoln course all the way out in Chicago. But when you're talking about one class and using that part-time, that's a very expensive investment to make at that time period. So yes, there was a lack of PD, not necessarily at the fault of anyone, just the availability. So it just so happens that BOCES just went through this 2 years ago, and that we have a turnkey trainer up there that we can access. So we're going to catch up.
Nice.
So
I just
go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to comment on Justin Preston's report and just say that from the fall 2 sports through the spring sports, a lot of stress was put on our athletic director and our athletic department, and I really think they did an excellent job battling through all the COVID restrictions and keeping up with the updates, and the school rallied around him with the community. And I was sad to see his resignation after 3 years. I think he's had 2 hard years of the COVID cases, and just want to acknowledge and appreciate the effort that they put into that, because without our athletic department, these kids would still be sitting at home. So they did an excellent job under very tough circumstances.
Agreed, absolutely. And piggybacking onto that and going on to item number 4 on his item, this corresponds with some of the email and comments and communication that we've received. Prior to right to yesterday. I'll talk about yesterday in a second, the governor. This is what we had come up with as a plan to do our end of the season varsity athletic awards, because we could not bring, our capacity was limited at 100. We have approximately 100 athletes. So we couldn't do the indoor capacity. Outdoor capacity was at 200. Well, you have 100 athletes, and then the coaches, and then you're going to add 2 parents, and you're over the 300 or 200 capacity. So what we came up with as a way to make a step toward normalcy and to get the families an opportunity to be present with their athletes and to receive something in person was that we were requiring each team to hold a ceremony, not all teams do, to hold a banquet, to give out the varsity club awards as far as the team-based awards. So every team has, I think it's most valuable or most improved, and then the certificates and their letter awards, varsity letter awards. And then we're going to hold another event that for the varsity club major awards that they give out every year at a later time. So in the middle of this planning, letters are actually stuffed right now, ready to go. And just prior to hitting the mail button, the governor yesterday on May 4th has announced that he's increasing the capacities of business-related and venue-related events to 250 indoor and 500 outside. So initially, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, graduations and proms and everything was 200, and then the caveat of testing and all this. So all of a sudden, from what we've read, I sent it to Mr. Loomis as well. What we read, that's now gone. 250, social distancing still required inside, 500 outside. So Mr. Preston and I were in the auditorium this afternoon, around 4 o'clock. We're at the auditorium counting, and we believe that 1 athlete and 2 parents that we can do an in-person athletic award event in our auditorium. So now we're going to switch the letter tomorrow, going to unstuff the envelopes. We're going to add the new details along with what our previous plan was, and we're going to send it out to the parents. And unless the governor all of a sudden does a reversal on us, or DOH does a reversal on us, and if they do, we'll have some heavy negotiations as to why. I think we need to push back at this point if that happens to us. And we'll hold our athletic awards. And even just piggyback onto that, Mr. Loomis just lit right up with a smile when I told him. I could see it right through the text he sent me, because 500 outdoor changes a huge amount for our graduation. That moves us from 4 to potentially, 7, 8 per student. So it's just huge for us as a school district. So hopefully it stays. There's no issues or anything that happens. Everybody's diligent, keeps doing what we need to do. So there's no spike that causes them to close it down. And we'll be able to get these events in between now and the end of the year. And as the board, as we said before, we have prom coming up. What's the date, Mr. Loomis?
Saturday, June 5th.
June 5th, prom, tent outside, going to be beautiful, going to be lit, and they'll have a wonderful time that evening as well. So I'm excited for our students. I'm very thankful for all the leadership and staff that have worked endlessly. And Tracy Dieter was an example tonight. Marsha Albert with the prom. Mr. Loomis has been in the middle of every one of those decisions, right up to his ears, as well as Mr. Preston with the sports. So kudos to everybody. We're doing it for the right reasons with the right focus in mind, the kids and the families. And that's what we've always been about at Walton, and that's what we'll continue to be about. So.
And thank you for your dedication trying to, find a way to have all these events, following COVID protocols. So
absolutely, that's the key. We'll have to, and we'll make sure that with every event, there's protocols put into place, signage, announcements, everything, so everybody stay safe. And but again, as we have been throughout this, and the data shows we've done very, very well. I don't think anybody can dispute that. We've used common sense practices. That people are together and they're socially distant, and they want to take that mask off and they're socially distant. Then they take the mask off and they get their fresh air. But when they're not socially distant, it's simply asked to put it back on and keep everybody safe. So kudos to everybody. It's awesome.
So just to clarify that, if there's anyone that was concerned about the district not holding athletic awards, there was going to be some type of athletic award to be held. But now with the governor's release on the restrictions, it'll be somewhat as a norm.
Absolutely. The initial plan was two parts. The teams gave out the individual awards, and that reduced the numbers that we could then bring in the varsity club award winners from each team and the overall district-wide award winners at a ceremony with their families. That was the plan. That was what was literally, Mr. Preston called me, and this is true story. He calls me at 4 o'clock and he said, "Did you hear anything about this?" And I said, "I haven't gotten anything yet in the email." So we researched it and I said, "There it is." He said, "Well, I've got the envelope stuffed and I was ready to bring them down to the mail and I'm thinking I better not." I said, "No, you better not. Let's figure this out and then we'll make adjustments and we'll get it out tomorrow." So, you know, I'll take it. I'm glad it happened, that we did it, but you know, it'd be nice if he was a little bit more predictable being our
Right.
governor, but he's not. So anyway, wonderful news.
Yep.
That's all I have.
That's all for your remarks as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have a need for executive session for the purpose of contractual negotiations. Do we have a motion to enter executive session?
I'll make it.
Second,
Arnie will second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, so we will go to your executive session link.
Have a good night, guys.
Dr. McDonald? Kevin, you should go to that other link,
The other link?
right? The executive session link. I believe you're taking action when you come back.
Okay, I thought I switched to that link. Let me
No.
try again.
I have to stay on this one.
All right, let me try that again then.
We're just missing Miranda.
Nope. One moment.
All right. Corey, you're all set?
We need just a motion officially returning to general session.
Okay. Do we have a motion to return to general session?
Arnie will make it.
Second?
All
I'll
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Carried. Okay, as a result of executive session, we need a motion to accept, or I'm sorry, to fund the WTA contract as presented from the April 20. Go ahead, Corey.
I was going to say, is that pending WTA ratification, as you had mentioned before, Dr. McDonald?
Yes.
So,
Correct.
as presented, let me put that in there. Okay, so it reads, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education does hereby adopt the following resolution as presented, pending the ratification by the Walton Teachers Association. Resolved that in accordance with Section 204A of the New York State Civil Service Law, funds are hereby provided to implement the addendum agreement between the Walton Teachers Association and the chief school officer for the period beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2023. Is that correct?
Correct. All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, with no other business before the board, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Reed will make it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.